Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and today I want to talk about another possible reason for why Starfleet stopped using the holograms during the time of TOS. I gave a lot of theories to try to explain that. My favorite one was that it was a security risk because holograms were able to see what's going on the other side. The displays on the bridge, for example, which might have sensitive information like the shield frequency, so if an enemy ship hacks into such a transmission, they would be able to gain that information, and so it made sense to have all the important stations to be turned away from the view screen, and that way any information from the bridge consoles will not be going over any kind of transmission, and so even if someone hacks that transmission, he would not be able to gain access to any of that information. And by the time of Deep Space Nine, the reason that they were so excited to get a new holo communicator was because Starfleet finally approved a new one to be used, because it had enough safeties in it to prevent the hologram from seeing anything on the bridge except the person the hologram was talking with. And so that's why it was approved, and that's why everybody reacted as if it's a brand new technology. So I would say the technology itself was there. Primitive holograms did exist because we actually did see holograms in the prequel Enterprise, which took place 100 years before Star Trek Discovery. We saw that they are using holograms for target practice. Probably not tangible holograms, they didn't touch them. Probably those holograms could only sense the weapon that you're shooting at it. Those scenes with the target practice kind of prove that communication with holograms should technically be possible. And there was also a scene on Vulcan in which they discovered an ancient Vulcan device which could produce holograms. And since Vulcan became part of the Federation, since they studied that device, that means that even if they didn't have holographic technology up until this point, now they will have it because they studied that device, and if they're part of the Federation, then they share the technology, and so Starfleet should also have holograms. And so with all this evidence of holographic technology in the hands of the Federation, I think we can accept the idea of holographic communication during the time of Discovery. The only real problem is the fact that we didn't see it being used in TOS. We only saw the view screens being used. So that's really the only continuity problem that is left. I didn't like the explanation they gave to us in Discovery, saying that there was some kind of problem in the Enterprise systems, but all the other ships don't have a problem. That was kind of too neat of a coincidence to explain it, so I didn't like it. It was too simplistic of an explanation, and that's why I prefer my theory of holographic transmissions being dangerous because they can be hacked into, and that's why Starfleet implemented some kind of protocol that they should not be used on the bridge or in sensitive places on the ship. And so that could be used to explain it. We can imagine there was a rec room on the Enterprise that we just didn't see. And I think the only remaining problem is the early episodes of TNG in which everybody was so amazed to see the holodeck, but I think we can explain it by simply saying this was such a high quality holodeck, and the programs themselves were so detailed, and that's why people were so amazed. So it was as if you're seeing some new kind of computer game which is very detailed and clever, and so you're amazed at that game. But it doesn't mean that you never saw any kind of computer game. It doesn't mean you never saw a computer. And the same with a movie. If you go to a movie theater and you see some amazing movie, and then you go and tell all your friends about that movie, someone from the past who never saw any movies might think he's just referring to the act of seeing a movie, that the movie theater is something new and amazing that the person is talking about. But actually he was only talking about that specific movie and not about the movie theater itself. And so maybe we kind of mistook the reactions into thinking that the holodecks were brand new, and actually they were simply amazed at the quality and the detail of the programs. The new feature that was in these new holodecks was the fact that it actually created some of the real matter inside it. It's something that Data explained to Riker in that first episode, so that might have been a new feature. So holodecks did exist before, but they were more visual, they were less tangible, you couldn't really touch a lot of things in it, and so it had no smells inside and so on. And there was one scene of Picard being amazed by the holodeck, and he said it's because of all the sounds and smells. So we can say he was simply amazed at these new features, that it was able to create actual smells because it replicated some of the matter inside the holodeck, which is a new feature which didn't exist before. And by the way, there was also a bunch of contradictions in the way the holodeck worked in TNG, so presumably because it was a brand new technology, maybe they kind of tweaked it a little bit, maybe they realized it was creating too much replicated matter, because in one scene we saw Picard being hit by a snowball that came out of the holodeck, so maybe after that incident he gave the order to restrict the holodeck more and to keep all the matter just inside the holodeck, so that none of it will ever come out. And so maybe they kind of changed the holodeck as they went, and that would explain all those contradictions we saw in the first season, in which they could apparently take stuff out of the holodeck because it was replicating part of the objects with real matter. And so stuff like water and snow, you could actually take it out And also, I guess any matter that you might have consumed, anything you might have eaten or drink inside the holodeck, it would have been very bad if it disappears from your stomach the moment you leave the holodeck. It might actually be dangerous, it might be fatal even. If you had a big meal inside the holodeck and suddenly you go out of the holodeck, if it disappears, it creates a vacuum inside your stomach, so that's probably pretty bad. And so I guess that drinks and food were being replicated for real inside the holodeck. We actually saw that in season 7, in which they deactivated the program, but they were still holding the glasses with the drinks they had inside. So that makes sense. That way you're able to eat inside the holodeck and not being afraid of the food disappearing if you leave. And so that does make sense. And as for Dr. Pulaski, there was one scene of Jordi asking her, did you ever see a holodeck before? And she said, I did, but not with this level of sophistication. So how can we explain that? Well, we know that she's very old-fashioned. We know that she doesn't like using the transporters, that she prefers the shuttles. We know that she preferred using all kind of ancient ways of treating people who are injured, things that some of the nurses didn't even know about. So she's obviously a very old-fashioned person. Maybe we can explain it by saying that she grew up on some distant colony which was far away from the Federation, and she returned to the Federation much later in her life, and maybe she didn't have access to some of these newer technologies like the holodeck, and so that's why Jordi asked her if she ever saw one before. So I think we can explain that away as well. So I think I covered pretty much everything, and I explained all these seemingly contradictions on this whole issue of holograms. So let me know if you think I missed anything, and we can debate it in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.